What's your name?
Catechism.
Will you give yourself to this program?
Yes, sir.
Hello, welcome to The Flick. We're talking about the Bourne Legacy, which is the fourth Jason Bourne movie, but does not really have Jason Bourne in it. Not really.
But they talk about it.
There was never only one, Christy.
There's lots of them. I'm Christy, this is Alonso, this is Matt. We are also all drugged up to be super and faster and brighter and stronger film critics than we might have ever been ordinarily thanks to the government.
That's called booze.
But it's a secret. Joan Allen knows everything.
Don't tell anybody. Do you want to describe this fourth Bourne movie to us?
I would, but then I'd have to kill you.
Please, kill me now and get it over with.
So Jeremy Renner stars as a guy who seems to be some kind of secret agent, some kind of military trainee. You're not really clear. He's been somehow enhanced, bigger, better, faster, stronger. And he's part, seemingly, of this government system that trains super spies, and this is in the wake, or kind of a parallel story for part of it, as the events of Bourne are going down, and then it's in the wake of it, and it kind of runs, you know, if not necessarily a sequel, it's kind of at the same time, because things are happening at the same time.
It's a spin-off.
It kind of gets confusing.
It's like Maude.
Yes.
It's a sequel boot.
It's like Maude with drugs.
A sidequel.
It's a sidequel. I heard that one, yeah. Like,
Jason Bourne was the tip of the iceberg.
It's Aaron Cross. We have never seen evaluations like this. He's Treadstone without the inconsistency.
I've never met anybody in the program.
So how many of us are there?
You ask too many questions.
Jason Bourne is in Manhattan.
Confirmed.
What?
That's all I have. Gotta go.
So I kind of like the fact that this is a more cerebral kind of action movie. I mean, it is not as actiony and action-packed and frenetic as the Paul Greengrass Bourne movies. And I like that about it. And I like that Tony Gilroy is more interested in like the process. And who was it? Peter DeBruce said on Twitter that he's more interested in the crisis suite than he is in the action. And I don't mind that.
that's my problem with this movie.
Okay, go ahead.
I think that the proportion of dudes in a room yelling at screens, there's way too much of that, and not nearly enough of like super spy jumping off of shit and shooting people in the face.
He does both.
But no, there's too much people in the room yelling at screens. Like there's too much Ed Norton and
Stacey Keach
and Donna Murphy and Corey Stoll. I love Corey Stoll.
I love Corey Stoll.
I think dudes in rooms yelling at screens is the reaction of all of our viewers when they don't agree with us.
Probably so, yes. But you know, it's that scene that you've seen in every spy movie and every spy show. They're all in some room at Langley, or they're in an office in an innocuous-looking skyscraper in New York, and they've all got their Bluetooths in, and there's the faces are on the screen, and there's the boop, 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 map, you know, and it's like too much of that, not enough Jeremy Renner, kicking ass. That's my problem with this movie, because I did not. This movie tries to pretend like it's Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy. Like
that has no action.
They throw.
That has 1 second of action.
But they throw all this information at you, and it's all this backstory and the intrigue, but none of it's interesting. And I didn't give a shit about any of it. It was just like, can we get back to Jeremy Renner shooting something?
So
Really,
want
it's going to
mindless.
become secret files for Algernon.
It was so Flowers for Algernon, because they've got these little Skittle tablets they have to take, or they lose their special abilities. No, I didn't want it to be stupid. I mean,
I was gonna say, do you want dumb action for the summer?
Give me like 30% of people yelling at screens and 70% of Jeremy Renner in the field.
Yeah.
This is more like 60-40.
What percent should we have Rachel Weisz spouting medical and pharmaceutical jargon?
We got about the right amount of that.
That's just
I
enough?
think. Yeah,
Okay.
but she's actually in the middle of the best action sequence in the movie.
In the house?
I liked her character because she handled things, I felt, in a relatively realistic way. She wasn't just like either kind of the wilting flower that like is along for the ride, or she suddenly gets tough out of nowhere. Like she really is like demanding answers, and she's doing what I feel like a real person.
She's afraid, like a real person.
Yeah, she copes with it in a recognizably human way of like an intelligent and capable person who is still nonetheless caught up in something much larger than herself that is, super out of control.
Yeah, I feel like she's kind of along for the ride. Given that what we know Rachel Weisz can do,
along for the ride.
She's kind of the girl along for the ride. What do we think about Jeremy Renner as this Bourne type character? He's Aaron Cross is his name. What do we think about him in this lead role compared to Matt Damon.
Well, it's interesting because both with him and Matt Damon, it's kind of like, we were talking during the break about, the Expendables and Jean-Claude Van Damme and all those guys, and it's like these movies take the shift of like, let's not take a big action-y looking guy and turn him into an actor. Let's take actors and turn them into action-y looking guys. I don't think people thought of Matt Damon as that kind of actor, and probably not Jeremy Renner
Pre-Mission Impossible.
or pre-Hurt Locker even as an action guy. But if you got the right actor and you put him with the right trainer, I guess you can make that work. And I think he's really effective in that way. I think he doesn't have the same sort of cold-blooded thing that Matt Damon has going on, but you still buy him as somebody who has seen some bad shit and who has been through the training and has been enhanced and
he comes off like a pro. That's what
Totally,
I like.
yeah.
There's the scenes early on, him in the cabin with the other guy, and they're having these very elliptical conversations, but they feel very kind of professional. It's like two guys kind of talking about work.
Yeah, and how much can they share and whether they're not going to tell each other.
And I kind of like that.
But in that scene, that's a good indication of the unpredictability and the personality that Jeremy Renner has. I think that sort of subsides as the film goes on, and he just becomes like killing machine trying to survive. Like, you saw flashes of kind of the volatility that make him exciting in movies like The Hurt Locker or like The Town, and toward the end it just becomes, when it becomes more action-y, he just becomes like killing machine, jumping across roofs.
I think it starts off pretty strong and pretty intriguing, and then by the end of it, it's just kind of generic chase scenes.
It's also very long.
When it is very long.
2 hours and 15 minutes
When
long.
it becomes action-y, he is pretty much sort of a cog in the machine, granted. But because he's built up all that other stuff up until that point, I sort of carried that with me.
And I think the difference, what we're talking about here is that, in the Bourne movies, you would see a very specific style to Jason Bourne's fighting, to the way Matt Damon would fight, that fit within his character and reinforced his character, the way he could use anything in the room as a lethal weapon.
Right.
And he was very creative that way, but without being ostentatious. It was very kind of focused and yet
not MacGyver.
Improvisation.
Here's a toothbrush, here's a washcloth.
Right, exactly. Here's a book. I'm going to kill you with this book. Whereas with Renner, it's kind of like, it seemed, there's the parkour that we see all the time, and there's a lot of stuff that we kind of have seen. I mean, the motorcycle chase I thought was pretty good,
very well done.
It was, it wasn't anything that I thought was particularly creative and new. I thought it was effective and executed well, but I didn't think it was.
There's nothing in this movie that necessarily makes you think, oh yes, let's keep this franchise going.
And except for the last shot,
which they will.
No. I'm not saying they're not gonna. I'm just saying the movie didn't make me want it.
Right.
So.
Well, and I felt like kind of the journey that what journey his character takes is similar to what happens with Damon over the course of 3 movies. Right.
Yeah.
That's kind of
it's just one film. Clearly, clearly this is a placeholder for more.
And it is at least a totally different character than Hawkeye from the Avengers. I felt like.
Yeah.
He manages to find, while still being an action guy, a different action mode to be in, and so it, you could actually differentiate them in terms of their personality, in terms of their approach to what they do, and that kind of thing.
Okay. So we're all kind of iffy on it. Yeah. Should we do numbers?
Sure. I give it a 6. I thought it was, pretty effectively done, and the execution is good, but the rest of the franchise casts a long shadow here.
Right, we should ponder that. Like, if this were its own little movie, right?
I think I would like it
impossible,
more. I think I would like it more if it was not a Bourne movie. I think that, as we've seen with a lot of franchises, with Prometheus this year, with a couple others, I think that if this was a standalone
Dark
movie,
Knight,
I think if this was a standalone film, I'd probably be more excited about it.
Do you love the Bourne movies? I like the third one's great.
I think they're a lot of fun. Yeah, I think when it's doing what it does best, it's a lot of fun to watch. But there's so much exposition to slog through to get there that it was. So I give it a 6.2 for the parts it gets right.
I'm giving it a 6.4. I liked it a little better than you guys did. So our average is a 6.2. It just crossed the fresh line.
Yes, it's just now into fresh territory at 60%.
It may not stay there though. So who knows?
It's a long day. All right, thanks guys. Bye bye.